minimizing the emotional impact of conflict. Some people want to end conflict. That's their goal. When they're in a conflict, their goal is to end it. Some people, and I'm one of these people, their goal in a conflict is to harmonize relationships. And I don't care if I get what I need, as long as you're still my friend, right? Sometimes people's goal in a conflict is to keep the issues open for ongoing discussion, and sometimes people's goal in a conflict is to make sure everyone is heard. You don't have to remember any of that. But sometimes your conflict score is high in terms of, yeah, we're managing conflict well, but you still may not be meeting the needs of some of your members. And you don't have to ask that question in a conflict context. You can ask it in other ways, right? You can ask questions around brokenness and frailty, and how does our church help you when times are tough? Governance. I'm kind of moving through these, but I'm looking at the clock too. So again, high scores on performance around governance. Leaders showing a genuine concern to know what people are thinking when decisions need to be made. Here's one, governance question number 2. The same small group of people seem to make most of the important decisions in our church. Really good score on that. That's a driving factor, remember? It's a driving factor around energy. So what they're saying to you, now we're getting more data about that question. What they're saying to you is, we don't want that. We don't want the same people making the decisions. And if we sense that there's going to be the same people making decisions, our energy is going to flag. A very can-do attitude in this culture and just kind of around the camp.
So I'm confused. So that means that people don't think the same group of people make...
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the response percentages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the language is a little bit subtle, but when you look at that question, when you look at that statement,
okay,
you can see that it's not good.
right.
You know, same. It has a negative vibe to it for most folks. What's that? Oh, okay. Spiritual Vitality Index. Let's look at this one for a minute. We're on page 21. Yep. I'm wondering if I should have just not had slides, since I've been in resistance to them the whole time. What do you see here? What's an index? An index is a way, it's just a lens of looking at data, right?
It's the whole thing.
It's revealing some of your data and hiding other data, right? And this index is revealing something that the other indices did not. And what is that? Do you think?
We're lower than other churches on this one.
What's that?
We're low, we're much lower than other churches on this one.
Yeah, maybe more ambivalence is being revealed here. Here's the thing, remember, spiritual vitality is not correlated with satisfaction and energy level, which is to say that you can have low spiritual vitality and still have high satisfaction and high energy. And so, in a sense, spiritual vitality is cheap. In a sense that if you have low spiritual vitality, it doesn't necessarily cost you a lot, unless you care about that. So you could have a hopes and dreams conversation with people, and you might get in touch with how much they care about spiritual vitality and what their needs are. I had a conversation with Terry before we started because Ray McKay was my spiritual director, and he died suddenly. earlier in 2014. And I haven't hired a new spiritual director because I don't have to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? I really don't. I'm making decent money. I work out a lot. I'm fine, right? But there's something missing in my life. And so I'm now finally asking the question, do I need a new spiritual director? Churches are similar to individuals in this way. We can be cruising along nicely, but have an issue around spiritual vitality. And it seems to me like there's certainly room for development here. And as you move toward profile, you may want to be asking these questions of yourselves, and you may want to be articulating this need a little bit. A need to deepen the spiritual awareness and competency and maturity of your congregation, perhaps. Again, when I went to New Orleans, this was the area that they struggled with. How do we make meaning of what we're doing here? They were making meaning of it, and it was having an impact on them, but they weren't as in touch with it as they wanted to be. Page 22. This is another one where I almost giggled. Readiness for ministry. Look at you guys. I mean,
he used to say it's like a herd of horses. They just are ready to go.
That's right. It's like, just stay out of your way is basically what I want to do. Right? Look at that. Opportunities to engage in ministry. Helping people discern their gifts. How many lay people at St. Andrews have gone to Seattle University or sought higher education in theology and ministry? What's the over-under on St. Andrews lay folk doing that versus other congregations in Seattle? It's pretty impressive. When I came here as an intern, you know, how many of those folks, and they're not going for priests necessarily, they just want to know more about systematic theology or, you know, ministry in a multicultural context and so on. You guys are great at that. How many trips have you organized for folks?
What?
Yeah. This is fertile ground for lots of ministry, for discernment. You know, you're going to want to have this really up front in your profile. We send people out into the field of their workplace, civic life, family life, social outreach. Rocking it. Educational engagement, here's another one, page 23. Super high, they're up in the percentiles. High quality education and formation. This made it onto your priority list, which is interesting. There might be ways that you can explore spiritual vitality using education and formation. You could ask questions around adult formation and spirituality, and what might be some pathways for that. You're really good at this, and if spiritual vitality is an area of focus or development for you, you could use this to do that. Don't work uphill. Okay. Worship and music. The music at our church, page 24, the music at our church is outstanding in quality and appropriate in style to our congregation. How are we doing there?
That's probably something.
Maybe some area of development here. This might look, I'm making this up and I don't know this, but this might look different at St. Mark's Cathedral. They might have higher numbers than you just because they have spent the last 2 or 3 generations really going for gold on that, you know, with the Flentrop organ and the Compline choir and all the things that they do. That doesn't mean they're better than St. Andrews. That doesn't mean that's your path. But when you look at this, it's like you're in the 50 to 60 percentile on outstanding music and style appropriate to our congregation. That could be an area of focus and development, but you know what? It didn't make it onto your priority list. So it may not be super important to St. Andrews. There are congregations where when people are complaining about music, it's a canary in the mine about their dissatisfaction with the whole system. There's a church in our diocese where the music doesn't change, it's the same every year. But if they're complaining about it, there's always some other problem with money or energy level or something. And if they're happy with the music, they're happy in other places. So the music is kind of, it's the gauge of overall satisfaction and happiness. So
that's why I have a question about this. So did we, do we know how many respondents were from the 8 o'clock, the 10 o'clock, and the Tazay?
So where is it on page 26? Is it on page
Do we have
26?
It's actually this is like from the end page. It was one of our extra questions.
Yeah.
Where is it? On the end?
At the very end. Most of the respondents were from the 10 o'clock service.
Right, because I'm just wondering if that, oh, I see, thank you.
Okay.
I was,
Right.
All right, so for the sake of time, let's press
Yeah.
forward. Page 25 has some financial metrics for you, and I'm going to plow through these really fast. Page 26 is the demographic data that we've referred to in the past. Depending on your level of personal desire to get lost in the data, this just kind of gives you the full breakdown of who are the people who fill out your stuff. Okay. And then activity and demographic data. Again, these are percentiles related to other churches who took the instrument. And then the statistics page on page 28, this is data that we submitted as part of our application to take the CAT. Okay. So this is church data from your records, as opposed to data that your people filled out on the survey. All right. Oh, I want to focus on time. We had said 12 to 2, is that right? Can you indulge me for at least 7 minutes? Okay. And we can also talk about further discussion of some of this stuff. The transition profile on page 29. This is bringing out some of the impatience with the timeline, right? However, what you're hearing, like look at transition question number 4 on page 29. During this transition, I'm thinking about exploring other churches. Almost nobody, right? Got a lot of loyalty. Satisfaction with current leadership. High discomfort with the timing of a pastoral transition. That all that says is anxiety, normal transition anxiety. So you could have a Bible study in Lent about the Exodus and wilderness, and how we find God in times of transition. Critical abilities for the next pastor. Nothing loopy or wonky here. Pretty basic. Compared to other churches, your scores are mostly average on the different things that you expect in your next rector. A higher than average need for a capacity to manage a complex system. That's
We have a complex system.
pretty self-evident. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to plow through because there's pages 1 through 4, which miraculously are in color. That's not on here. Hold on. These are the supplemental questions that your leaders put together. And this is where we see some data about the environmental ministries. Okay. So the first page of one of the 4 is 2 areas where you believe the most additional resources should be focused. Lots on children and youth. Right? I'm not sure, as your little interpreter here, I'm not sure what you meant by the Spirit. Kathy? Do you mean the Holy Spirit? Or do you mean like a...
Spiritual vitality.
I can tell you where I get the language from.
Okay.
Back in the early part of 2014, working with Father Pete, kind of in conjunction with the capital campaign, we identified, or I don't know who did it, perhaps Pete did it, identified the things that were the most important or perceived to be the most important to our church. I believe that's where I got the word the Spirit, because I'm the one who suggested the language for this question.
I'm a fan. I just...
Spirit.
You, like, if you're talking about this issue with others, you may want to say more about what you mean by that. It could mean spiritual vitality, or it could be discernment. Like we want to add more resources to discernment of the Spirit. So there could be different flavors of ice cream on that. Yeah. Let's look at page 2. And Cricket, this is going to get next to what you were looking at.
Is it labeled page 3?
It's page 2 of 4. Is it not in there?
Yeah.
And a
Thank you. We have a 1
Right
of
here.
4 and a 3 of 4.
Is it on
So-
the slide?
And maybe you have a slide.
All right, let's look at the slide. Sorry, I blame Kinko's. Used to be called Kinko's. I'm showing my age. Please identify one area, if any, within St. Andrew's identified core values where you believe fewer resources should be focused.
Wow.
So,
Wow, that's amazing.
none of the above. High energy, high satisfaction. Generally, this data is saying steady as she goes, right? This number, I was thinking about. What do you think about this environment data? What might it mean?
That what we're doing is enough.
That what we're doing is enough.
It's just fine, we should
No,
carry on.
what does
This
the
is
question
less.
say? Don't
Yes,
spend
it's
any more
total.
money, right?
This is less money, right?
Less-
Please identify where you believe fewer resources
Fewer
should be
resources.
focused.
Well, I think that you've got to interpret it with question 95, the one right before it, and there's a high degree of ambivalence because the numbers are both around 20%
Mhm.
for more and for less. So 40% are saying change something.
Or are they the same people?
I don't know.
Right.
Well,
Well, they may not be saying,
more.
So
the
here,
same people wouldn't be saying both more and
Right.
less, I hope. But,
Yeah.
hold on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So 26 people. Here, let's make this smaller. Get smaller, please. 26 people.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just gonna
Just
cut.
Oh,
slide
never
over,
mind.
just slide
That's
over.
okay.
That's all right.
26.
So 26 folks had indicated fewer resources on the environment. Again, it may be that we're good. We can throttle back because we're doing a lot. It may mean that we feel saturated on this issue, you know, that we want to toggle back and lay fallow a little bit.
It may be the solar panels, or
That's what I think.
the few people that, you know,
Or opposed to the solar panels.
Well, I don't
Yes.
think, well, I don't think it's
Yeah.
just that. Because that just would account for a couple of people, and we're looking at 26 there.
Yeah. You could also say, let's not assume we know what this means and have another conversation. At St. Mark's, they spearhead all these initiatives and they do all these things. They achieved green sanctuary status with greenfaith.org. They did all this great stuff. And then in my second year there, we laid fallow for a whole year. We did very little. We just needed that. We needed to rest. And we needed to regroup and do some discernment about what we wanted to do next. There could be folks here who are saying that. They could be saying that. And it's right for them and true for them. We just don't know. So you could imagine lots of different stuff to do here. You have a conversation with the creation keepers. You could have a more general conversation where you invite anyone who's interested in the issue to come and talk about it. You can have one-on-one conversations. You can do lots of different ways to explore what might be being said here. Kathy?
A question, is there a way to get more information about that response group? Could the original responses be looked at to give us information on those 26, what age group they're in? Just to tell us more about that, just to kind of...
We would have to ask the CAT folks if they have that data. It was not given to me. We could ask about that. You could probably get the same N, as it were, or roughly the same, if you were to ask, like if you were to invite a process, and the folks that have energy around this issue would come.
I'd like to get more information on it.
Okay. Again, we don't know what this is saying. We can work hunches. The responsible way to interpret this data is to say that it raises several questions, and we're leaders, we know this congregation pretty well. We can be reasonably sure that we're on the right track when we ask 2 or 3 questions about our data. When we ask, are they seeking rest because they feel saturated or exhausted? Are some of these people grumbling because they're opposed to how it's going on a particular issue, like the solar panels? It's possible that more than one of those questions is yes. We just don't know. One thing we should not do, again, don't run with scissors, do not use this data as proof that you individually now know all you need to know about your priority. Right? That would be misusing this data.
And could we get a copy of that page
That
that's
missing
missing
page?
for our...
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave mine with you. Pass it around. Sorry about that. Okay. And then on page 3, which 2 portions of the current capital campaign are you most excited about? And as you look at this data,
Where? Oh.
we're on page 3 of 4 in the colorful section. Again, I'm not sure what this is saying, to be quite honest with you. It looks like there's fairly general excitement, kind of scattered across 4 projects,
This is 4?
or 4 areas. This is page 3 of 4. Okay. There's a couple little areas where there's low energy, and who knows what that means. But this gives you some data to, here's what this data does for you. It gives you a starting point for more questions, okay?
Stephen, would it be acceptable to interpret this that very few people are excited about none of the projects? Would
Yeah.
that be a correct interpretation?
Yeah.
What? Say that again?
That very few people are excited about none of the projects.
Right.
Right.
The respondents.
Clearly, your respondents are in relationship with these projects. They have an emotional relationship with these projects. That is clear. Yeah. Okay, and then finally, during the past 12 months, which service have you primarily attended? I'm really glad you guys asked this question. I remember resisting it for some reason. I'm really glad you asked it. Just because you want to know. and it's interesting. You got some Taizé folks. Good job.
I mean, I don't know. the actual attendance of these two, but I would guess we got most of the 8 o'clockers and most of the Tazit
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Given how many.
Actually, the Tuesday and 8 o'clock are pretty similar attendance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a general
It's about
rule of
30
thumb.
to
Okay.
34.
Yeah.
It's a general rule of thumb that the folks at your 8 o'clock service use St. Andrew's a lot for their own spiritual faith, their spiritual life and development. St. Andrew's is a place where they come for the big questions and the big events and who they are as human beings. So it's awesome that you got such a good response from that crew. Yeah. Yeah, this is a really robust response. And then finally, page 39. If someone put a gun to your head and said, I want to know what you guys talked about today, you could hand them this and get away with it. That would be okay. Okay? But it would not be ideal. Here's what you should do with the executive summary. And I'm going to send you all electronic copies of all this. Okay? But what you should do with the executive summary is use it as a basis for a document that you make your own. And so this is what the computer summarized of all of the data. Okay? And so it gets pretty close to saying, it says the basics. So it talks about satisfaction and energy, talks about priorities. It says in comparison to other churches, here are the goals that are strong for you, and so forth. And you can look at that and you can say, this is something we could share with everybody. You don't want to make copies of the whole packet and distribute them or put it on your website. That's why we're taping it. Ideally, what you'll do is turn this recording into a DVD or something on a thumb drive that can go with the packet. And so for the 3 or 4 people that are really interested in the whole shebang, they can watch me do this and walk through it. But for most folks, an executive summary is enough. And you can use this as it's written, or you can make it your own. You can use this as a basis for creating a shorter document that folks want. There's going to be a broad middle of people at St. Andrew's who just want to know the high points. They want to know that satisfaction and energy are high, and they might want to know a couple of goals, or a couple of priorities that are important to the congregation. The opportunities for people to form meaningful relationships, a strategy to reach new people, outreach ministry improvement and expansion, and developing ministries that heal those broken by life circumstances. Those priorities should be widely distributed to your folks as areas that were indicated. I like that they included 4 priorities in this summary and not just 3, because that fourth one struck me as something to tap. All right, I have exhausted your patience, even if you don't know it. Thank you for your patience also with Kat and how they don't want you to look at the data without me standing here. That can be frustrating for some of you folks.
How about the true and false questions?
Yeah.
Oh, thank
The
you.
what?
True and false.
The true and false. Thank you for bringing me back to that.
True and false.
They're all false.
They're all false.
They're all false
Yeah.
on notions. And if you feel bad because you answered some of them true, I answered some of them true when I was following St. Margaret's Bellevue in their interpretation. I was sort of a fly on the wall for theirs, and I answered a few of them true. So I'm going to stay in dialogue with you guys about this. I'm going to send you the electronic files, and I'm also going to follow up with your leadership on how this went, likes, concerns, and wishes, and next steps. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Stephen.
And thanks to Kathy for
organizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One of the next steps might be to design like the executive summary of how you're going to launch that to the whole congregation, and include in that summary a thank you to the team that did all the elbow grease on this. So, yeah, this is designed to introduce the next phase of conversation with your congregation on all the issues. So, thanks everybody. All right.